Awesome. I think that means we're good. So, Holly, do you mind introducing yourself and who you're with?
Okay. So I am Reverend Holly Tapley. I am the Great Plains United Methodist Conference Disaster Response Coordinator.
That's quite a title.
It is for, I cover Nebraska and Kansas. That is what our conference is made of. Not around about 1,000 churches. So, wow. Yeah, lots of land area. Of course, we know, but I guess they thought got to have a long title to go along with the large landmass of cover. So.
Big responsibility, big title. Yeah.
Oh, man.
So can you tell us a little bit about what you do in regards to like disaster response or what that looks like?
So we are, as United Methodist, under the umbrella of UMCOR, United Methodist Committee on Relief, who provides trainings and credentialing for volunteers. Trainings are, there's a basic early response training that is where you go in following a disaster and you do either debris removal or tarping roofs and windows or mucking down a home, down to the, well, we gut it. A lot of times you just have to gut it. So those ways of doing are FEMA backed so that we know what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And every annual conference under the United Methodist Church all trains the same way. So when I go to Louisiana, we can just go in and go straight to work. Or when Arkansas came up here to help us, they can just go straight to work because we're all trained the same way.
Follow the same procedures.
Yeah. So we have that. We have more in-depth training on how to do damage assessments and a site assessment, which is really different than a damage assessment. So we have those trainings and have done those for various counties around the conference before. Safety and security of buildings. We've done training that to train our people to go in and to look at safety issues or even site issues in a home. So many people want to just get on it after a disaster and just want to start work. I mean, it's like, okay, we know this flood's come through here and we know we need to get it out. And so let's just get on it without doing a site or a safety evaluation first. And, I walked around a trailer somewhere in Nebraska in 2019. And my team's under there working and the pillars holding that trailer up were not steady. Oh, dudes, y'all got to come out of there and we got to rebuild these pillars before you can go back under there. Looking at that type stuff also. But so those trainings, I also do volunteer management. I think it's a great setup for volunteer management, training disaster case managers, helping to establish long-term recovery committees. And in Kansas, we are such a low-level disaster area. We're not going to get a lot of presidential declarations. It's just not going to happen. We've got some state with the wildfires, and that's great. But these counties really need to establish a long-term recovery committee so that individuals are treated respectably, and it's not across the board. I mean, you do not help a survivor if you just give everybody the same thing. you've got to look at their needs, and you've got to look at what they can put in, how they can begin to establish their own recovery plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people don't do that. And you just kind of re-victimize the survivor by not giving them the opportunity to be a part. So we also do a lot of that, Justine. I just took this is a newie for us. Of course, we've done all the COVID stuff. We had a partnership, or have a partnership, with KDHE and with the governor's office, and provided testing and or vaccinations within a lot of our United Methodist churches. That was an interesting thing to do, but it brought in a different group of volunteers. The volunteers that needed to work those events didn't need to be trained for a disaster, but it's different responsibilities. So we tapped into a whole different group of volunteers by we just need somebody to open the door and to greet people and to give them direction on where to go, and making sure they're okay after they receive their shot, just watching them for 15 minutes. So it was a whole group of volunteers that it was going to be a short-term volunteer opportunity, and it was detailed enough that they knew what they had to do, and then they were fine. And then they went along their way, and they were happy, and they could say, yes, I volunteered this week for church. So that brought in a whole new level of volunteerism. So I guess we can thank the pandemic for that. But
no, absolutely, I completely understand that. I feel like a lot of people are uncertain, like they want to get involved, they want to get involved with the communities, but they're not sure where. They're well, I don't have any specific skills, or I don't know how to disaster response, what to start with that. So I guess my question is, where would you suggest people start with it if they have the drive but they're not sure where they start?
And I'm going to add something on that. Some people are like, well, I can't go muck out a house. Where is the spot for me?
Yeah. Well, there's more to mucking out. And Devin, that's good, because there's more to mucking out than just cutting it all out. Because if you're mucking out, 9 times out of 10, the homeowner still has not gotten all their belongings up, the basement or out of the area. So part of that is getting those belongings up, and then working with the homeowner on what can be saved and then what cannot. And then the things that it's cleaning them. You've got a cleaning station set up, and so volunteers who can just clean belongings that are brought up out of a flood area. That is a need, because if we've got people who can take care of that aspect of it, then those who are trained to go down and cut the drywall and cut the insulation out, then it doesn't take away from them. So there's a need for people to do other options. In the summertime, there is a need for safety people who will just come around every couple of hours and make you stop and make you drink or make you drink Gatorade. And because if you don't have that, we'll just keep working. Because that's just what we do. We just keep working. But if there's somebody who that's their job, it's just you just on every 2 hours and you make sure people are drinking and people are snacking and people are taking that rest. So there's ample opportunities for individuals to volunteer that have not gone through the skills. People to answer phones and to take messages, people to put things in a database. We have a project manager, and Marilyn is marvelous but she could use some help. Well, we're in a big time, and all the groups are coming, and the teams are coming to her for work orders, and and then they're coming back to her to give her an update. It would be awesome for her to have somebody sitting next to her that could take the responses back in and then get the database updated. So there are all kind of needs. I mean, people who will just run to Lowe's for us, or Home Depot or wherever, and just be a gopher. But the most important thing that people can do, and you don't have to be trained for, is just listening to the homeowner. I mean, sitting and having a conversation with that homeowner and talking to them about their story, and leading up to the disaster, and then to begin to help them heal, and where do you go from here? What is your next step? What are you thinking currently that you want to do or need to do? And helping them to have that type of conversation, and begin the healing process so that they can begin to take that next step. So you don't have to just be a trained ERT, early response person in our case, to have something to do.
That's really awesome. And like Justine said, so like with all that in mind and all those options, so like Justine asked, where do you start? How do you become involved?
If people get involved with us, it's a matter of sending me an email. I would say a phone call, but I'm liable to forget a phone call. But I can, it's there. But sending me an email and just letting me know the interest. If it's not a United Methodist organization, if it's some other organization, just reaching out to them and letting them know, hey, I'm interested in what you do as far as volunteering for disaster. What do I need to do? We do require training, and we do require background checks. But we start with, if we're in the middle of a disaster and I just need individuals, I need people, then we try to get those who are already background checked and do an in just time training, so that they can work, and then to let them come back later and do the required training to get their credentials. So there's some way to work all that. You're always going to have spontaneous people who are going to show up, and you can't turn them away. What I found after the Lawrence tornado is that you take a couple of spontaneous volunteers and place them either with my group, Samaritan's Purse was out there, placing them with another group has trained. Then you can watch the volunteer, train the volunteer at the same time.
Kind of as they go.
Yeah. And I know that doesn't always happen, because you get more spontaneous volunteers than you get agency volunteers. You just have to you have a conversation, and what are your skills? Now, we had a man who came with his family in Lawrence, and apparently they lived on a farm or something, and knew how to do it. And he was just so funny with me. He said, I run the chainsaw and they pick it up and pull it up to the road. They know. And so I assigned them to an area as a family and let them go, and did ride by there later. And that's exactly what he was cutting, and they were pulling. So a lot of them will come and tell you, I can do this. And I have the skill, and then you gotta be ahead in your thinking about what do we have, where can we plug individuals. After a tornado, after a flood, you're always going to need electricians, because the electrical department is going to come through and pull the boxes, and then you're going to want to put the reconnect the electricity into the boxes back on the house. Well, you take a licensed electrician to put the box back on the house, and then get the electricity going again. So there's many things.
So I also wanted to ask, what do you think is important if people are getting involved, in response to disasters or anything like that? What is important for people to know when they are responding, when they're on the scene, whether it's a disaster that's personally affecting them or their community? What do you think people should know?
Well, you have to be mentally prepared. Mentally prepared to see things, hear things, smell things that you don't in your ordinary daily life. You have to be able to keep that straight face and not let anybody know that what you just saw or smelled or whatever, affected you. You have to have a passion to help people, but then you have to be a compassionate person to be able to do your very best in someone else's home. I mean, you have a mindset that I'm going to work on this person's home just like it was my home. Is you do your darndest to make sure that it is 10 times cleaner when you walk out of there than it was when you walked in. So you gotta have a passion. You gotta be a compassionate person. You gotta be able to work with others, and know, especially if you are with a vetted team, that vetted team is trained a certain way to do what they're doing. And so you have to fall in with them. I mean, you can't be an individual person working in a disaster. That is trouble for that person, but it's also trouble for what could be the homeowner. Because there's, you've got to get the release of liability form signed before you really can get on their land. And then you've got to get the release of liability signed to be able to work on their house. And so there's so much that has to be taken into consideration before you can just start work. You never promise anything. If you and they don't forget. I tell you, they don't forget. Even if we might be able to come back. Well, they didn't hear me. They heard we'll come back. And then so the language that you use has got to be clear, and it's got to mean what you say. So. Probably, though, the biggest thing with volunteers is flexibility. To be ready for a change on that. We may leave Topeka, go into Wichita, thinking that we're going to do debris removal. And when we get to Wichita, we may be told that no, we need to tarp roofs and to tarp windows. So you have to be flexible so that you can just turn on a key and take care of whatever the needs are. And see a need and you have to mitigate and think ahead that if we take care of this need, better for the homeowner in the long run so that they don't have any more issues. So it's looking at the present, looking at the past, and it's looking at the future with our home and how we can make it better.
That's great.
So volunteers play a crucial role.
So, when we're talking about skills, or I wanted to ask, is there a particular skill that you have that you were kind of surprised has been useful in disaster response?
Oh gosh. Personally, oh wow. I mean, I always fiddled with things growing up. And I mean, about the only TV shows I watch are the HGTV home repair shows and that. But I think for me, it's passion edge of wanting to make the life better. I have learned so much construction stuff over the past, I've been doing it 36 years. But it still comes back to the relationship.
1 second, Holly. I can't hear you. It sounds like there's wind blowing. Devin, is your mic on?
It was.
Oh. So sorry.
Yeah.
Can you repeat that, Holly?
Wind. I'm not outside.
Oh.
Yeah, you were messing this up,
Sorry,
Devin.
guys. I was gonna add something to Holly's skills, but I'll catch on in a sec.
Sorry, go ahead, Holly.
I'm scared to know what she's going to say. But it's just, I don't know. It's taken the eye and compassion to make that home better. And I just things. It's the weirdest, it's like that just does not look.
I think compassion is absolutely a skill, absolutely needed skill.
Yeah, well, it is. It is because, I want to make sure that we leave those homes in the absolute best. So I'm constantly looking for things. I mean, I was in a house this past weekend in Nebraska that I was staying, and it was the basement construction was not legal. The whole time I was down there, I was just thinking, oh my God, I'm in an illegal basement, and I'm in a bedroom that has no window, and in the middle of the ceiling as the drainage pipes coming down and all the electrical work, and I was just like, I was petrified the entire time.
You got an eye for safety.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's it, Justine, an eye for safety. Yeah, yeah. So you just really caring about the individual and wanting to do the best, whatever that might be. And learning. I mean, learning as you go, what would make this a little bit safer? Could we, can we build it up? Does it need to be torn out, and does it need to be rebuilt? Is it beyond our skill? More than likely it is. Recognizing that, recognizing that we are, as volunteers, are volunteers, and that do not or should not take on the responsibilities of things that we have no clue what we're doing.
Absolutely. We need to stay in our wheelhouse. Absolutely.
We really do. I mean, I have followed teams that have done some crazy things in a person's house, and you're like, what happened here? Homeowner would be, well, such and such group came in and said, because my basement flooded, that I needed to cut the drywall upstairs like a half foot off the ground. Well, that makes no sense. And the water, it had already been checked for moisture, so there wasn't any moisture up there. you've got a homeowner faced with having to replace drywall.
More unnecessary repairs on top of whatever
Yeah.
else. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's important that volunteers know what they're doing.
Know what skills they have and know specifically how they can apply those.
Exactly. You know, you don't pull drywall, you cut drywall. I don't know how many piles of drywall we have removed out of the basements from groups that pulled it, made a huge mess, and then left it in the middle of the floor. You cannot do that. You have to have a sense that if this was my own home, how would I do it? And knowing that you're there for the other person, you're not there for yourself. And if a volunteer thinks that they're in it for what they can get for themselves, then they need to hit the road and go somewhere else.
That's not what volunteering's about.
Exactly.
It does make you feel good, but it's not for you.
Yeah. And you usually do get a whole lot more out of it than the homeowner does. Yeah, it's not for you.
Absolutely. Say, speaking on skills, I also wanted to ask, is there a skill that you've yet to learn that you would like to, or something that you're like, oh, I'd really like to learn that? Specific to disaster response or anything?
Or anything.
Anything, yeah. What's a skill you'd like to learn?
Oh, wow. I think it would be cool to learn a little bit of woodworking.
Oh gosh, yeah.
To like be able to have an eye to see to like build a table for somebody, or even cutting, molding, or something. I don't know. That's probably something that would be pretty cool to do. As far as disaster world, then you never stop learning. I mean, they're always changing, and I want to always keep that eye to if I see something, then let's tweak it. I think if we tweak it a little bit, we can do just a little bit better of a job with it. So always having that. But I think woodworking would be a skill that would be pretty awesome.
Well, definitely. It's like Deb and I were like just talking about woodworking like yesterday, I think.
Yep, it was yesterday.
Well, we should do something. We should start a group. Teach you what we're doing. I mean, I got the tools.
Honestly, would absolutely love that.
Oh, we might need to do that.
Yeah.
Press release.
So, Devin, did you remember what you wanted to ask about skills? Or
I wanted to say something. You'd asked Holly, what skills she had that she thought, worked really well for this type of field. Something that she didn't mention about herself is she's an excellent listener, and she finds the right words and has a comforting presence. And when you're working, especially with cleanup and somebody's belongings and that personal level, being able to listen to their story, that survivor's story, is an important skill. And Holly's really, really good at that.
I would absolutely agree with that from what I've seen.
Yeah, you're right. I don't talk about myself, so. But
I think it's called like soft skills, like communication, like comfort and all that. I think that's what those are called, but absolutely, as you've shown, absolutely necessary in disaster response or any kind of response.
Yeah.
I think one of the hardest positions is Holly was talking about helping somebody clean up and some things you aren't able to salvage and some type of stuff like that. That would be a really hard volunteer position.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really is. Because you can only advise somebody. You can't say to them, well, you absolutely need to throw this out because the homeowner's right. But you can advise them, and that is difficult to say to somebody, well, really this is the type of material that holds water, and just think, yeah, it's going to dry, but everything that was in that water that soaked this pillow down, when it dries, it's all still going to be in there.
Mm-hmm.
All those particles and all that stuff is still going to be in there. And I said, just think about that kids come and this is the pillow that they use.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you put a pillowcase on it, is this something that you want them to, to lay their head down on?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's listening to their story and understanding. And I had a lady in Nebraska who had puppets. Back before both of you were born, churches had puppet ministries. And so this lady still had her puppets. And they are out of the material that holds the water.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her, I said, the material of these puppets hold water, which means it's going to hold everything else that's come through. And she was just, determined to save those puppets. And when I was 6 months later to do some more work, she said, I had to throw them away. She said, once they dried, they did have the mold on the inside and just the other stuff. She said, I could not salvage them. So you just have to kind of walk where they are at the time. And a lot of people don't know that you can salvage a lot of things. There was a family in Mulvane after the flood there, and they were loading up the back of the truck with kids' toys and stuff, and the kids are crying. And, I just kind of walked over to the truck and was looking, and I said to the daddy, I said, this hard plastic can be salvaged.
Mm-hmm.
He looked at me like, what? And I'm like, yeah. I said, take it off and let's clean it.
Mm-hmm.
So there were like 3 or 4 of those backyard toy type, whatever you want to call those things, that they were just going to throw away.
Mm-hmm.
We actually got out and cleaned that afternoon. And scrubbed them and, let them dry and then scrubbed them again and looked for any dirt matter. And by the end of the day, those kids were playing on those things.
Mm-hmm.
New sense of life for not only those 2 little girls, but for the whole family.
Mm-hmm.
It's volunteers provide hope. And they provide a presence of themselves. If with us, it's with the church, of community of people who really care.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you want to leave them with is you hope. You want to leave them with the resilience that, we can recover.
Sorry. Excuse me, honey.
That's okay.
Keep going.
If I was home, my Nico would be right in my face. So, you have to give them the hope and encourage the resilience, and to check back with them, just see how they're doing, see if they made it. When I go back to these towns that we've been in, sometimes I'll ride through the area where we work, just to see if they're back to a new normal. And sometimes I'll stop and talk to them, and sometimes not. But it's keeping that personal touch with them. That's the big thing.
That's right. That's what it's all about. People helping people, in whatever way that looks like.
Exactly. Doing what they need, not what you need.
Absolutely.
Or not what you want, but doing what they need, and doing it in the best that you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for taking the time for us today. Devin, do you have any other questions or anything else?
I don't.
I also wanted to ask, is it okay if I share your email, or is there an email you'd like me to share? Like if people want to get in contact with you or anything like that?
You can share my email. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
That's the best way. And I try to check email every day. But I'm so far behind just from being in Nebraska the past 3 days that I'll eventually catch up. But so it's better for email, because if they call, I will miss a call and not even think about it. But in email, at least it's there. So
You got a paper trail, yeah.
yeah, that's the best way.
Certainly. I'll make sure to add that.
Okay. Work. That will work.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. It was wonderful seeing you. Nice talking to you. And I hope you will have a restful time between activations. I know you're always running about.
Yeah, waiting to see what tonight's going to bring. So, what do you?
Rain. It's going to bring just a nice amount of rain.
A gentle, soft rain. That's it.
Yep.
Fingers crossed.
Well, Devin, you'll be happy to know that I'm going to be at the house tonight.
Oh, good. You and Nico can just chill.
That's
You
right.
can hang out, have some good snacks, and enjoy the nice rain.
That's exactly right. I will not be driving down the road somewhere.